President of UFC, we love talking to him. He is bombastic, colorful, cartoonish, and honest, unafraid as well. Because he was late yesterday, he has agreed to take your calls today as well. Access to Dana White, 786-360-0790 is how you reach him. He was on the way to Celtics-Lakers last night. He is crushed because he is a Celtics fan. Did you want to throw up in a bucket or what?
Actually, you know what? Seriously, I can walk away from it and go, it was a good game, a great series. So what more could you ask for?
So you're not what is the most you care about? I mean, obviously your sport, but outside of your sport, what do you care about most in sports?
I'd probably say boxing.
That surprises some people, I guess, because they think you have a rivalry with boxing, but you love boxing.
People are out of their minds thinking that. It's not true.
If you want to talk to Dana White, again, 786-360-0790. What's the angriest you've ever been with one of your fighters? Was it Brock Lesnar? Was it Anderson Silva? What's the angriest Dana White's ever been with one of his fighters?
I've had a few. I would probably have to say with Tito. Tito and I, we had a relationship, before we bought the UFC, and then, the things that kind of went down between he and I, at a critical time in the business. So I would have to say that was probably the most angry I'd been. Plus, I was a lot angrier when this thing wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
I've lightened up a little.
How do you, Shaq wants to get into your sport. We've talked to you about this before. He's always tweeting you. Do you think Shaq, yes or no, you think Shaq will ever get into an octagon?
I don't know. I doubt it. The bottom line is, the reality is fighting is a young man's sport. A guy who is young, learns everything, trains hard, and gets in there and fights. It's not really an older guy's sport. It's great. He trains in it, and let me tell you, he's a great friend and has been for many years. And the last thing I'd want to do is see him step in and have anything happen to him.
What's the most excited you've ever been to see a fight?
Oh, God, I'm always excited. Whenever we have, I'm involved in everything from, we start making the fights and then promoting them and all the bells and whistles that go with it. But when it's fight night and I'm in there, man, I'm excited every time. I love fights, and I love, when the best guys in the world, either when the best guys in the world face off or two guys that are going to fight that is just going to be a great fight. I love to watch fights.
Are you any good at predicting results?
I'm the worst. You never know in this sport, man. You never know who's going to win and who's going to lose, and I think that's part of the excitement of it.
What's the most stunned you've been after a result? I imagine the last time BJ Penn fought had to surprise you.
Yeah, BJ's fight wasn't like a big shocker because it wasn't like some dramatic knockout or some dramatic finish that you're like, wow. Or he was winning the fight and then, Frankie Edgar just pulled something out and beat him. I think some of the times that have been most shocking are when a guy is winning a fight or you expect him to win this fight, like, oh, there's no way this guy can lose, and he loses.
So what is the most surprised Dana White's ever been after a fight?
I don't know. I guess the best one, my favorite fight that when people ask me, I always talk about was Matt Hughes and Frank Trigg, too, because there's a whole storyline behind the fight. Matt Hughes and Frank Trigg fought the first time. They hated each other. Matt Hughes pulled off an impressive standing rear naked choke, meaning Frank Trigg was standing. Matt Hughes had his back and choked him out in the standing position, and he actually fell backward, and the ref broke up the fight. Then Frank Trigg worked his way back up the ladder again, and what happened is he not that he didn't want to fight Frank Trigg. He's always been the guy who will fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. But the problem was he hated him so bad, and he said, there's no way that I'm going to win more impressively than I did last time. And if you saw the fight and you know what happened, let's just put it this way, he ended up winning more impressively.
What do you make of the James Tonys of the world making their way into your sport?
I'll be the first one to call somebody out for putting on what I call a freak show. And a freak show meaning, I know that mixed martial artist, a guy who's got a complete game, stand-up game, a ground game, wrestling, could beat a boxer or any guy who has just one style. So, James Toney came and chased me around, talking smack, calling me names, calling the sport, all kinds of stuff. And, he's a guy whom I've respected for years. Like I said, I love boxing. So, I ended up making this fight. Listen, anything can happen when two guys get in there, a guy who can punch like James Toney can and a guy who has a well-rounded game like Randy Couture. So it's going to be an interesting fight.
It's freak show, but have you ever had conversations with Tyson? Has Tyson ever been interested in entering the octagon?
I talk to Mike all the time. Mike was with me, 3 days ago. We were hanging out and we went and watched a fight together. Mike Tyson is a huge fight fan, knows everything about MMA, knows all the guys and the fighters and different fights that have happened, but, he would never compete. Mike's day is done. Let me tell you, man, being a huge boxing fan like I am, there was never a better time in boxing than when Mike Tyson was the man.
Dana White, if you want to talk to him, 786-360-0790. Got 10 minutes left with him here, and we will take your calls. Somebody writes in by email, in sports we root for one team or another, but how do you root in your sport? All the fighters are your fighters.
Right. There's no rooting for me. Two guys, we put the best – two guys in there that we think will put on the best fighter, whoever we consider to be the top guys in the world, and whoever wins, wins. There's times, for instance, our last fight that we did on pay-per-view, Chuck Liddell is one of my very best friends. He's, I consider this guy family. He comes to my house on Christmas and stuff like that. He fought Rich Franklin, whom is another friend of mine. Rich Franklin's been here since the fight. He's driving one of my cars since he's been here, When you got two guys, it's like back in school when two of your friends would get in a fight and you get sick to your stomach, and it's never fun. But this is a sport. It's no different than, the Lakers played the Celtics last night and somebody wins and somebody loses.
Question for Dana White by text. Why does Dana show no respect for Frank Shamrock? He was the 5-time middleweight champ for UFC at one point.
I don't know how I've not shown any respect to Frank Shamrock. Shamrock and I have butted heads publicly many times. We have two different opinions on things. It doesn't mean I don't respect what he did when he fought in the UFC.
We ever going to see? I'm sorry, excuse me.
No, that's okay. We just, our personalities don't match up at all.
We ever going to see Silva and St. Pierre?
People ask me that all the time. It's getting to the point. This is what I believe. I believe that my job is to put on fights that people want to see. And, I keep hearing that, and enough people want to see it. I guess I'm going to have to do it.
What the hell are you waiting for?
I don't know. The fight doesn't really make all that much sense to me because George St. Pierre is a true 170-pounder. Anderson Silva, at 185, he's moved up to 205 and does very well at that weight. I see him going up, not going down.
Who's better?
I don't know. Getting into the whole who's a better fighter, the only way to answer that is to have them fight. I never answer questions it's like everybody will say, what do you think about this guy and that guy? I say, you know what? Here's what I can tell you. Stylistically, this guy's got this guy's got that, but the only way to find out who's going to win is to have them fight.
Sean, you're on with UFC President Dana White.